This is not just a story of a man. It is a story of integrity, a story of tenacity, a story of doggedness and zeal to achieve a common goal selflessly. It is a story of a man whose name transcends through generations and brings a light of true patriotism, especially to the Bayelsa people. A spotlight on late His Royal Highness Geoffrey Filinti Aganaba, Kalaoku II, the Ebedawe of Kolokoma.
He was extremely transparent, outspoken, and I admired him for his intelligence, his humor, and his devotion to duty. I did not know that he was equally admiring me. And so we became not only friends, but brothers. He did everything possible to keep me happy, but unfortunately, I could not pay back and lost him. That was how we came together. Unfortunately, he's no more.
Born into the family of Aganaba Waramote on April 16, 1926 in Odi, a known community in present-day Kolokoma Opokoma local government area of Bayelsa State. G.F. Aganaba, as he was popularly called, spent his early days in his hometown, Odi, where he completed his primary education in flying colors. He was described as a brilliant young man, and his extraordinary traits made him unique everywhere he went.
Royal Majesty G.F. Aganaba was a strong character, and we benefited most from that, because when he puts up an argument in our meetings, we knew that he had a point, and we like to follow him.
That was a scholar, an orator, a top-class orator, a brilliant man, hard-working. I just wonder whether he was sleeping well, because he was always ready at any point to serve to the fullest to satisfy everybody.
After his primary education, George Filinti proceeded to the Okrika Grammar School, where his leadership qualities began to display once more, as he was a renowned sportsman and a house prefect.
After the secondary school in Okrika, OG as they call it, after that, he went to practicing of agric. He became an agriculturist. He went to Umudike, then came back, went to Sabagria, was in Abobri, then eventually, if there is one man who could say that was very intelligent, who could say that Chief His Royal Majesty Geoffrey Filinti Aganaba was one of them.
Described as a brilliant leader and a pioneer in different spheres, G.F. Aganaba was admitted into Moore Plantation, Ibadan, to study agriculture and was posted as an agricultural assistant to the Sabagria substation after the completion of the course. While there, he initiated the Cocoa Cooperative for farmers.
He was an agriculturist and worked in that area and did quite a number of things. And I think went around a number of places in the current Bayelsa State and the old River State. And I do remember one of the things he was fond of talking about was Abobiri. There was, I think, an agric station there, and I think he worked and developed that place. And also, being an agric-economist, he did a lot of work that could be good for a developing environment like ours. And I think he really did it well.
Then he was a farmer too in our compound. We had green leaf planted there, We also had ginger at a time. So once you go to him and say, Papa, my stomach is, I'm feeling pains in my stomach, you just say, go and get ginger and chew. It will subside and get okay. So he was hardworking. He was a farmer, farmed even in his own compound. It was old GRA, so it was a place where you wouldn't want to talk about farming at all, being the kind of person he was and the area you were living. So, but you still engage in farming even in that compound. We had pepper, we had ginger, we had green leaf, and from time to time he keeps changing it, like what they call shifting cultivation and all that.
He was in agriculture and practiced agriculture not only in the office, but also in his garden and his poultry, and even transferred it to my house, where he would control, yes, where he would aid me to nurture the flowers.
Late Royal Majesty GF Aganaba was a father, a leader, and a natural ruler.
GF Aganaba got an American scholarship to further study agriculture at the Cornell University, Ithaca, New York. A course he completed in 2 years, even though it was a 3-year course. GF Aganaba was a man loved by all who crossed his path. His selflessness, his zeal, integrity, and quest for a better life for his people gained him the crown as the Ebedawe of Kolokuma in 1972.
He went to the university in the United States, a program that he would have used about 3 to 4 years to doing. He did it for 2 years. After the 2 years, because of the way he completed this program, they considered him as a genius, so wanted to keep him behind so that they can tap his knowledge. As a man that grew up in the village, he didn't want to stay in a foreign land. As nostalgic as he was, the man forced himself and he came back.
He had become a chief, and he carried the responsibility on his head. Kolokuma did not make a mistake to have made him their leader. I was not there during this election, but I was made to understand that it was an open affair with an address in a written form and oral form, and that he clearly won the hearts of the people. And he did overwork himself in his service. His house was open to all. If we're talking about leaders of thought in Bayelsa today, his name, as far as I'm concerned, should come number 1. Chief Aganaba then was a man who would not like to see anybody oppressed. Just as he wouldn't tolerate oppression, he would not also like to see anybody oppressed or cheated. He was forthright, upright, outspoken, fearless in standing by the truth.
A man of the people, you can call him, as he was a friend to all and had the uncanny ability to deal with the highest and lowest class in the social ladder.
He was always there to make his children, the people that had contacts with him, know that it's important for somebody to be hardworking. He was not necessarily overbearing, but he felt that for you to make anything progress in life, you must be yourself, you must be working hard. Don't laze about. Because of the way he handled a lot of things, so many persons considered him They didn't understand him. He was kind of an enigma. They could also say that he was esoteric or a recondite, because somebody that is very hard to believe and understand. You know, too many persons feel that they are proud people. He wasn't a proud man. He was very down-to-earth, simple. A very good conversationist, can converse with almost anybody, no matter how high or how low, and very forthright too. I mean, those were the virtues of our parents. Forthrightness was one of it. They had opportunities to make money. They didn't make money because that was not part of their DNA. And the love for the community and love for the people was clearly evident in him, as with so many of his siblings too.
He had always shown leadership and direction. And if I would use the word, he was a leader, he was a happy person. And one of the things that I could also tell was when you talk to him, relate with him, see what's around him, he was a man that was happy with himself because there was quite a lot of self-contentment in him. He didn't quite worry about what anybody is doing or not doing. He was happy with himself and wanted that happiness to go beyond his household to the larger Ijaw family. And I would want to say he did his best in conjunction with others to achieve that.
A leader who loved his people and gave his all as a dogged fighter for the rights of the Izon people. He served as the Ebadawe of Kolokoma for 25 years, during which he played active roles in the activities of the Ijaw National Congress.
And our late King HRH Aganaba was one of the pillars in the Ijaw struggle. One of the pillars, because anytime our young men were in the struggle, runs into any trouble, he will be in the forefront to make sure they are released, whether from military barracks, commissioner of police office, wherever, DSS office. So far, any young Ijaw man who is engaged in the struggle to emancipate the Ijaw people runs into some problem, he will go out full blast to make sure the person is released from detention or whatever. So we see him as a godfather. He lived that role and we're so appreciative of him. He was like the linchpin of those who made sure that any Ijaw young man that is being arrested is released. He used his integrity, his name, and his influence to make sure the person is released.
He wanted these people to have some element of good self-worth. Self-worth in a way that they have a say in who they are, who they would want to become. And that is, I think, better expressed by way of governance, self-governance. Self-governance not necessarily in the sense of having his own country. He believed in Nigeria, but wanted a situation that these people had a good say in how they are governed, and played some key roles in wanting a state for the Ijaw people. And he did that in quite a number of ways, and that was when I got close to him and got to know him very well. They wanted to give direction to the movement of our own people for the creation of a state of our own. He did that at various other times, but the last one was the creation of Bayelsa State. He provided leadership in a number of ways: moral leadership, financial leadership in providing resources that could be useful at different points in time. He was, I think, one of the seniors, elders in the movement that did quite a number of good things for us at that time. I want to remember that his house was next to that of Senator Zwofa. Those were two premises in which the people who were seriously involved in the movement for the creation of Bayelsa State would get to meet from time to time. So he really provided the type of setting and environment that made for people to realize what we are getting into. And from time to time, we may need to lower our voices. Even in cases where we are getting quite hot, we need to cool our tempers in a way that the ultimate thing is for us to have a state. So I think he really provided that leadership.
Because the man was very humble, very loving. Even the good people of Odi loved him. The first man brought agriculture into Kolokumopukuma. And he carried so many people along. Very nice man. And if you have such leaders and you emulate their way of life, you will never fail. Because up till today, Egbogboro is the oldest traditional ruler in Bayelsa State. And this my late uncle, we used to call him uncle. Egbogboro said he hasn't seen somebody like my late uncle, the Aluku the second. Up till today, I am benefiting from that love from Egbogboro, because Egbogboro loved Aganaba. And Egbogboro, because of Aganaba, Egbogboro extended that love to me up to today.
Well, as a traditional ruler, he stood out. He stood out. He was a man who had respect for himself. Respect for himself. You've heard the story of some traditional rulers being called Osman Danfodio kings and all that, but he wasn't in that class of kings at all. He had respect and he had value for himself. So even when he didn't have something, he would not stoop too low just because he needed something from, we had military administrators who were not from Rivers State, but he was a Rivers man. So being on the neck of those military administrators to do well and perform well was something that always put him in trouble, because he told them, you are a small boy. This is our state. You cannot come to Rivers State and do what you like. We have to tell you what to do. It's not because you are a military governor, administrator. If I were to be in the military too, I probably would have been a military governor or administrator. So you are a small boy. Just do what is right for our people and we won't have issues. He always had issues with them, but he still kept to what he believed in.
Late His Royal Highness G.F. Aganaba was on the fore in the fights for the creation of Bayelsa State, a cause he pursued passionately alongside other notable Ijaw sons.
His Highness Aganaba was a solid rock we can rest on. When we tried to put things together to request for the creation of Bayelsa State, we found him the willing and convenient and acceptable rallying point. A lot of meetings were held in his premises in Port Harcourt, and he was always very forthcoming and very generous, and made his house, made us all very welcome to come and meet with him at his residence. And I still remember, even when we thought we had prepared the memos and sent, we found that the memos had fallen into wrong hands and had been miscarried. We had to regroup again and prepare some fresh memos. All that was done again, still in his house.
So Aganaba is one of the founding fathers of Bayelsa State, without any shade of doubt.
He was the person that had some focus and direction. He was concerned about the plight of the Jaw people, and for this state to be created, he believed strongly that the only hope for the Jaw man.
His involvement in the creation of Bayelsa, that man did a lot. He did a lot in the creation of Bayelsa State. He doesn't sleep. In fact, it was in his house that all the meetings were held. Messages is the one they will send. Go to Abuja, go to here, meet who and who for the creation of this Bayelsa. The man did a lot. He doesn't sleep. At his age, he doesn't sleep. So he did a lot for the creation of Bayelsa State, and I feel he should be rewarded.
He spearheaded the creation of Bayelsa State while he was in Port Harcourt, behind Isaac Borough Park. From time to time, we used to gather in his own palace, in his own house, trying to deliberate on how we can even get our own state. All meetings were held in Aganaba's palace, and everybody became quite energized. We became happy that we have a group of intellectuals and important personalities always gathering in Aganaba, demanding for a state of Bayelsa State. And they fought, and documents were given or written, and later the state was given. The state was given to us in the time of late maximum head of state, Sani Abacha.
So he told me his experience with the late head of state, General Sani Abacha, that, do you know, I was in the company of the Minister of Petroleum, and we went to see the head of state, and he was asking me, Chief, what do you want? I said, what do you want us to do for you? What would you want us to do for you? And he said, I told him I don't want anything, that what I want is a state for my people, that the Ijaw man needs a state. So that if you can do that for us, we'll be very happy for having a state. So I'm very okay, I'm comfortable, I'm okay with where I am, but just give us a state. So when I heard that, I was very angry and disappointed. And that was how that thought remained with me much more till after when the state was created, and I got to understand what it meant to have your own state as a people, and then be governed and take decisions for yourself.
G.F. Aganaba served as the chairman of the Bayelsa Forum for years and was one of the founding fathers of Bayelsa. But like Moses in the Bible, he did not live long to enjoy the fruits of the state's creation, as he did not reach the promised land before he passed away due to illness.
When they make the meeting, my husband and I be the head of the meeting for Bayelsa State. Very strong man. When they make the meeting, almost 10 years, they make meeting every month. They make meeting till Abacha can rule Nigeria. Then Abacha na our neighbor. When Abacha can be our neighbor, can rule Nigeria, then Abacha can put a tete for minister. Then that very time, this hand phone never come out. It's line they use. My husband come phone a tete. We want to see Abacha. Say, no problem. Abacha come, a tete come book for them. 8 of them go down for Abuja, go see Abacha. One day go see Abacha. Abacha, joy, this is my neighbor, this is my father, happy with them. Then minister pay hotel for them. 8 of them, one room. Go see Abasa. Abasa said, don't worry, I must try my best. One then go second time. Abasa approve this state for we. Approve am, say we don't get state. One then they come, announce this state. My husband stroke pull am down. My husband not fit talk. This planet very sharp. Strong man. My husband not talk again. Till he then come announce and say we don't get state. My husband they will share.
And at the point of creation of Bayelsa State, Aganaba was not well again. But he was so intelligent, so good that all meetings of related matters to creation of Bayelsa State were held in his own house. But unfortunately, when Bayelsa State was created on October 1, 1996, Aganaba was on a sick bed. He couldn't talk again. When the announcement was declared, declaration was made, everybody started jubilating. And I went to visit him. And it was then the wife said her husband could no longer talk. He was on a sick bed. And so when it was announced, the wife now encouraged me, Daddy, do you know that the state you were fighting for, and that was Bayelsa State, has now been created? His eyes were open, but he couldn't talk again. And so we jubilated there, but there were sorrows all over because this is the man who spearheaded and played a cardinal role in the creation of the state. And at the last moment, he couldn't talk to stand up to jubilate with us.
So he was on and on in the fight for the creation of this state. But unfortunately, he had a stroke and did not last. And just as the state was created, he said farewell. I think it's a way of demonstration sacrifice. We are sad to have lost him, but to sacrifice means to give without receiving. My friend and brother gave without receiving. He put in all his best to develop to make us independent as a state. But he did not get any reward from it. That is love. Love goes without demanding anything and without receiving anything. Chief Aganaba, His Royal Highness, is somebody whose spirit should be remembered by this state. Unfortunately, I'm not hearing his name.
He has been described by many friends, associates, and family as a man whose values were outstanding and worthy of emulation. A man whose name commands respect across the entire Ijaw land, and in prospect, a man whose legacy is being nurtured by his children and descendants.
Growing up around him, I'll call it a life of inspiration. I saw qualities in him that I continue to practice in my life today, which has helped me in my personal life and in my career to attain very enviable positions in my place of work. I saw him as somebody that was very hardworking, that was very honest. He loved the truth at all times. And sticking to that alone has helped me to solve a lot of problems in my personal life and in my work life.
He had so many things that one can love about him. As I've told you, he's generous, he's friendly. In fact, nobody can see him and say he's a bad person, no.
Well, the old man was very forthright. Once he has given you his word, he stood by it. Many times people tell you they are ready to help. And when the time comes for them to play their part and do what they hope and promise to contribute, they now start having a second thought. They start dragging their feet or even backpedaling. But he was not like that. His word was his bond. And frankly, that is what it takes to be a hero.
In all, I can say that this man impacted on so many people, so many lives. I was also a beneficiary of his altruism, doing things for the benefit of so many people. One thing I knew that he didn't want to do is to take bribe and do things against his conscience. I can tell you that. He was contented with whatever he had.
Our affinity, our belonging, sense of belonging was anchored on the Kolokumaigbesu. But Kolokumaigbesu was limited to spiritual lives without other areas of human endeavor. So what actually our late King Aganaba brought that now opened out to modern lives of Christianity, education, and all other things that are health and so on. So people have now, as at now, from there have imbibed the culture of modernity, if I can put it that way. So those are some of the things we can remember him for.
When he was alive, he was one of my principal advisors. Was very useful to me, very kind to me, took me as his son. But if there's anything I want to do and I find it difficult, and if I approach him, he gave me the elderly advice, and it worked well for all of us. His Royal Majesty G.F. Aganaba is a strong character, and he believes in what he believes. And once he believes in a cause, he will fight and struggle to see that what is right is being done. And that was the aspect I borrowed from him.
This is not the end, but the very beginning of the story of this great man. Geoffrey Filinti Aganaba lives on in many ways, and the story will be told.